you all for being here. I'm a firefighter, medic, and search and rescue officer for now almost 2 decades, working in multiple countries from the United States through here to the Middle East. Today, I also own a public safety consultancy here. I'm very privileged to work with government agencies on emergency preparedness, and I'm also part of the Secure Communities Forum, an initiative of the UAE's Ministry of Interior, which we'll talk about more in a minute. Today, I want to talk and engage with all of you on a really important topic, which is people of determination, what we in the UAE call people with disabilities. They're actually the world's largest minority group. They make up 20% of the global population, are people with either physical or mental disabilities. And as a unique population, when you look at it demographically as a minority, it means that we need to give them a little bit of additional attention as rescuers. So before we get into how we can do that, I just want to sort of paint a scenario and get some initial feedback from you, the audience, on it. Okay, in all honesty, I have no idea where this video is from, so the context is irrelevant. However, flooding is definitely an issue faced in the UAE, and it's an issue faced globally, especially with climate change. There's a lot we can talk about, the increase in natural disasters globally. But for the sake of discussion here, how long did it take for this room to fill with water? The answer is 15 seconds. Now imagine this room is full of children of a relatively young age, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can't tell exactly based on the footage, but it's some sort of preschool. And now, statistically speaking, 20% of those children will have some form of disability. As rescuers, for those of you in the room who are actually firefighters, and for those who are emergency planners and facility managers, I'd love to hear some thoughts that come to mind about what do you do if this was a room full of children and it filled halfway with water in 15 seconds with a flow strong enough that you probably can't get out of that now bent door? Does anyone have any thoughts that they want to share? I'm going to pick on someone. What do you think? So I've been a firefighter for 20 years and I am not sure where I would go either. And the goal today of this lecture is probably not to give a lot of information, but it's just to ask questions, right? So we usually give these lessons from Secure Communities Forum on disaster preparedness and people of determination. Usually we give it to caregivers, we give it to police, we give it to firefighters. And so I usually get very technical, very creative answers. Oh, I'd go stand on this table, or look, there seems to be another door here. The reality is you're probably not getting all the kids out of this room. That's what a disaster is. A disaster is when the scene in front of you overwhelms your capacity to respond. And that makes it difficult to rescue people, and it makes it all the more challenging to rescue people who have some sort of a disability, people of determination. So that's what we're going to talk about very, very quickly. These are sort of the goals. This is really a 2-hour lesson we give that I condensed into 15 minutes. So again, it's really just to get us thinking and get us talking, especially in the Year of Community in the UAE, where from our perspective, that means engaging with everyone and including everyone. That's how I'm taking the Year of Community as a first responder here in the Emirates. So a little bit about the Secure Communities Forum. We are a sort of think tank, an informal think tank supported by the Ministry of Interior. Our goal is to bring professional law enforcement into collaboration and partnership with academia, social activists, parent groups, scientists, corporates, and to together address a range of under-addressed public safety challenges. So we do a lot of work on training police on cryptocurrencies. As we speak right now, we have a training going on for 500 police in Singapore, for free, by the way, with the biggest crypto companies in the world training them. We do a lot of work on countering extremism online, and we have the world's only international working group on public safety and disabilities. And this program was developed through that working group. And I encourage everyone in the room who wants to be part of that discussion to come up to me afterwards. You can talk to me, or you can message us on LinkedIn, Secure Communities Forum, and we would love to engage with you. So now on to our topic. What are people of determination? Most of us in this room, I think, live here, but for those who might be visiting, that is a term we use for people with disabilities. It's a unique term. It was invented here, and it's a term that puts agency in the hands of those with disabilities rather than disagency by using a negative term like disabled. This word is actually now spreading into other countries. I've now encountered it, not in formal language, but in informal discussion among people with disabilities. They identify with this term. Disabilities can be visible, can be somebody in a wheelchair, or they can be invisible. I've been a medic for 20 years. I have PTSD. That is, medically speaking, a disability, right? I hear a loud noise. I'll have a panic attack, even though I know how to do CPR and I've been to a million fires and everything. That is also a disability. And most disabilities are actually invisible. So why is it important to look at this? There's many reasons, but I broke it down into 3 pillars. Some are technical, and some are a little bit more philosophical. By taking into account every aspect of society, that's the only way we can create real community safety. Right? If I create safety just for this first table, what about everybody else? So I think that on a philosophical level, community safety means community safety for everyone, the year of community. That's why we believe it's the right time to talk about this. 2, as first responders, the decisions we make when caring for or rescuing disabled people have an immediate impact on my resources. As a firefighter, as a medic, whatever we are, we have a toolbox that's only this big. And so I'll give you a quick example. Do I take the extra time to evacuate this guy with his wheelchair? It's faster for me right now if I don't take his chair and just carry him down the stairs. But he's now dependent on the system until he gets a new mobility device. Food for thought. Again, it leads to a more effective response. And then there's legal and ethical obligations, which we'll get into briefly here. There's all sorts of statutes and agreements. The most important one is here, the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, Article 11 and 19. You can read them here. The UAE is one of the first countries to sign this. Also here, Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. It also talks about the need to take into account disabilities when doing EM, emergency preparedness. Again, the UAE was an early signature there. And then, of course, the central place that people of determination take in UAE society also is a driver for why we need to look at this. A lot of you may know some of this, some of you may know all, but I want to take the 12 minutes I have left to create a common language between us. So in the future, when we encounter a situation, we'll have the dictionary to pull back on. And again, this is just meant to get the conversation started. We're not going to leave here with PhDs or anything today. I'm just going to give a few examples here. This is a basic chart that defines the different types of disabilities, gives very easy to understand examples, and then just one little example of how we consider it and how we can accommodate when we're talking about firefighters who need to engage in rescue of a single person of determination or many in a large disaster, for example. So again, I don't want to read it all because it's up there and you can read it, and I'm happy to share my slides with everyone. But I will give just one example, okay? And it's like almost a stupid one. People who are colorblind actually sometimes struggle to read evacuation signs. Depending on what colors are used, it might not jump out to them the same way it jumps out to somebody who sees colors normally, for lack of a better term. So when we think about emergency planning and evacuation, how are we communicating to people with disabilities? I'm severely dyslexic, right? So if you want to give me, on the door to my hotel room in many countries, there's a little schematic with an evacuation sign, great, and a little description. That description might be written at a reading level that's a little bit hard for me, and I just might not process it. So that's examples from the planning side. If we go into more severe or more significant, let's say, right? Somebody who is paraplegic or is walking with a cane. The same example, right? I arrive to his apartment. There's an apartment fire. I need to evacuate him. Do I take the time to take his assistive mobile device or do I not? There's no answer. There's no right answer to that question. But it's something we need to cognitively think about in advance as we plan and practice for these scenarios. A, it's faster for me to take him without, but he might be more mobile faster and thus not a burden on us if I take the time to bring it. Just little examples, okay? More challenges I want to talk about. Sensory disabilities. I know we like to say when there's an emergency, we just have to save lives and that's it, but that's not true. 99% of the emergencies that we respond to, it's not split-second life or death. We have those incidents as first responders, of course. How frequently they happen, once a month, once a week. Most of the times, even when we're evacuating people from a smoke-filled fire, they're usually not in immediate life-threatening danger in that second. And so it does give us time to start to think. If there is somebody with a silent disability, whether it's they're on the autism spectrum or have other sensory issues, showing up with, radios blaring and, these headlamps on our helmets when really we can see fine in the hallway without it. And if we turn down that radio, that child with autism might be a little bit less scared when we come into the room. And so, yes, it's protocol and all of that, but sometimes we need to just take a moment, understand what scenario I'm walking into, understand who is the person standing in front of me, and adjust accordingly. Patience and giving people a chance is also really important. As a young medic, I remember treating somebody who had cerebral palsy, and I just assumed he couldn't talk. And the whole time I was speaking to his parents. Now, the patient was 25 years old. And halfway through the drive to the hospital, he turns to me, and yes, it's very difficult for him to get out words. He says, you can speak to me, right? And I failed. I failed in that moment because I made assumptions. Don't make assumptions. Ask. Ask the caregiver. Ask the person, because they usually know what they need best. People with physical disabilities are sometimes uncomfortable about their bodies. You need to assist them. You need to evacuate them. Don't just grab them. Is it okay if I put my hand here? Is this the most comfortable place? Can I grab this arm? Is it okay that I put my hand under your leg? They're very, very, very sensitive about their bodies, and that extra second or two that you give to understand them and to put yourself in their shoes will lead to more trust from them and thus more community trust as well. These are just more examples. Again, we have 7 minutes left, so I don't want to get into all of them, but I'll just touch on one small point here, okay? I touched on PPE already. Heat and smoke, there's not much we can do about it. I'm just looking to see if there's anything really, really critical because we don't have a lot of time. Assistive devices we talked about. Aftercare. So let's now put ourselves in a large-scale disaster scenario, okay? Not an apartment fire, a flood. A flood that usually means citizens may be out of their homes now for 24, 48 hours or beyond. I've rescued the person with disabilities, the person of determination who uses a wheelchair. I was smart. I told the rookie firefighter behind me, grab his chair, we're going to need it later. Great, so now he's in emergency shelter. He's mobile. What about his medications, right? We need to really, really think before we evacuate these people about long-term care, and it goes beyond their devices. What medications do you have? Are these medications going to be in the first aid tent? Because sometimes they're very, very unusual medication that aren't part of traditional planning by healthcare systems for emergencies. Do we take them with us or do we not? It's a debate. On the one hand, if I leave his medication in the fridge, it stays. On the other hand, he might not have it, and they might not have it at the healthcare facility that is going to provide care. There's no answers to these questions. These are just things that we need to think about in advance because this is 1 in 5 people. 1 in 5 people that we're going to encounter as rescuers technically fall under this category. And if you don't take the time to ask them what their needs are, there's no way that we can provide proper care. This is basically addressing people with sensory disabilities who get overwhelmed easily, get panicked easily. And a panicked patient, a panicked rescuee is a more difficult one to deal with on a technical level for us as first responders. But again, it goes back to dignity. So be predictable, avoid sudden movements. Again, this goes for people on the autism spectrum as well. Explain, hey, I now need to go over here to get this. Just so they're not caught off guard. They're in a panic situation. Anybody's going to be nervous, but there's some people whose nervousness is beyond the quote-unquote norm. So again, be predictable and explain what you're going to do. Respect boundaries. Like I said, ask before you touch them. This is not a regular person. Their body is already something they're so self-conscious about. They might be in severe pain that you don't know, and by moving that leg, you could exacerbate it. Talk before you touch. Always remain calm, especially when dealing with people who need additional care. You might feel more pressure and more rush as a first responder because you're dealing now with something more complicated. And that's where it's really important to stop, take a deep breath, it's okay, and then move on slowly. They're going to feed off of your body language the same way anybody feeds off your body language. And create space and decrowding. If you don't need so many people there, don't have them. Right? Oftentimes, people with disabilities, there will be modesty issues as well, moving them because of the type of clothes they need to wear if they have severe physical disabilities. This is all bottom line. It goes down to respect and being calm. We have 3 minutes left. So again, this is really just a conversation starter. But the challenge is real. 20% of the world's population is disabled, like we said. We need to think about them in advance, but the opportunity to create true sense of secure community, especially in the year of community, is right in front of us. Because if we go the extra mile in our planning and we sit and we create the proper protocols and procedures and we train our frontline staff and our gold commanders and field commanders know to, check with the employees. This guy's disabled. Did you do X, Y, and Z? We have an incredible opportunity to build community trust. And we're lucky in the UAE that already the community has such tremendous faith in us as first responders. But we can solidify it further by making sure that no one is left behind in the quality of care or the attention they get during a rescue. And we're all responsible for this. It falls on the dispatcher, to the first responder, and everyone in between. I finished 3 minutes early. I'm happy to answer questions if there are. If not, it means I think we can go eat 3 minutes early. But I want to conclude by saying thank you for listening. This is a topic I'm extremely passionate about. I shared a personal story where I failed as a first responder in that regard, and that's what motivates me to come and push for this. The Secure Communities Forum takes this problem very, very seriously. We offer free trainings in disaster preparedness for first responders and caregivers. We provide free trainings in just the basics of disabilities. These are 2-hour modules. We work in the UAE, we work internationally. This is something that is of paramount importance to us. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.